So I came across this video on Pinterest and I loved this outfit. I said I was going to make it for myself. So I'll be sharing with you how I did that. By the way, this dress is a bustier. It has a built-up neckline. I decided I'm going to be making use of my own Adire crepe. If you follow this channel, you know I love to share information on different kinds of fabric. And guys, this is what it looked like by the time I was done drafting the patterns. There's no way you'll be following this channel you don't know how to draft patterns correctly. I'm big on drafting great patterns so that you don't have to suffer when you're sewing. Welcome to my channel. My name is Ini. I'm a fashion designer that's very passionate about helping others with their sewing journey. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on your notification bell. You can also find me on Instagram. Subscribing to the channel is absolutely free and it will not cost you anything. So without saying too much, we're just going to get right into the business of the day. This is my pattern paper, and on this paper I have the basic lines drawn out, which is my shoulder to bust, shoulder to under bust, shoulder to waist, and shoulder to my hip point. If you look at that picture of the top, you see that the top gets to the hip point. So I took the neckline, which is 3 inches, but because this is going to be a built-up neckline, I just added 0.25 inches. Like, it's not even up to half of an inch, so I just made it 3.25. Then I created the basic neckline, even though we're going to be changing later, but for now that's just what it is. I marked the shoulder points divided by 2. Mine is 15 inches divided by 2, and I marked that point. So this is me drafting like a basic bodice pattern. First of all, if you're following this channel, I have a detailed video where I have shown everything there, how to take the accurate measurements, the formula that will help you to get it for any kind of size you ever work with. So now I just mark the bust circumference divided by 4 there, so that I mark the chest, the shoulder line again on that point, so I can bring down the line. Then I marked the new chest line. Your chest line is after your slope, 1 inch slope, you mark your bust divided by 6, round bust divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. I marked the basic darts, and I also have a video that talks about this, giving you all the needed formula. So after taking the waist darts, I'm just going to create the basic bodice that is marking the round measurements divided by 4 and creating that. I also took the bust darts, and in case you don't know what a bust dart is, please see my previous video. I'm going to link it in the description box so you understand better. Okay, so after doing that, please make sure you come to your shoulder point, take what you have from the neckline, divide it by 2, and draw a line to meet the apex of your bust. That is what is left from your round neckline. Divide was there into 2 and mark it to the bust point. Okay, so after that, I'm just going to mark my under bust darts. Please go and watch my video where I showed how to draft patterns in details, and you get all the formula there, how to get your under bust darts accurately. Not that one that people will tell you, take 1 here, take 2 here. You need to get it accurately so that you don't make any mistake. So after connecting it now back to the waist point, I'm just going to slash open this paper so that I can now close to that. So I'm going to slash open the shoulder line to meet the bust point, and I'll slash at the bust point, the bust dart point. Then I'm going to close it up so that I can make some alterations to the shoulder. Now at the shoulder point, just take note of what you have there, and you're going to divide that by 4. I had 2.8 inches, then I divided it by 4, and I'm going to go in by what I got, and that part is going to be going off. That mark you got, mine was about 0.6 inches. I just extended the shoulder and I connected it back to redraw the shoulder line, the armhole line, because that place is going to be covered and we won't be using it anymore. That's a way to contour the shoulder area. After doing that, you could decide that you want to use the shoulder dart point. That is, you're going to cut off on that point where we said we're shading off, and use it as a shoulder dart. But in my case, I want to do a princess dart, so I just divided the armhole by 2. That's what I had on the armhole. I placed my tape there and I connected it as the princess line. So if you look closely at that outfit, you see that it has an exaggerated hip. So now I'm just going to go up by about 2.5 inches, and I am going to connect to get that slope we have on the picture. So that point is going to have a curve going down, and I'm also going to extend the hip point to make it look exaggerated. So you could decide you want to extend it by about 2 inches or 1.5 inches. It just depends on you. Of course, when you connect it, you're just going to look at the way it is and you know if it's okay for you. Don't forget, we don't have any allowance on this pattern, so we're going to add some allowances. And don't forget that at the under bust point, you're going to replace your darts first before you now add your sewing allowance. At the waist point as well, you're going to add some. You replace darts first before you now add the sewing allowance. So once this is done, I'm just going to connect everything like this together, and we are done with the drafting of the bustier. So one important thing you need to take note of at the armhole area is that you did not see me connecting the armhole to the allowance area. I connected the armhole to the exact body measurement, so please do it just the way you've seen me doing to avoid having some excesses around the armhole. And now, in order to draft the back pattern, I'm just going to extend some of these lines, but we're going to take note of the fact that the back shoulder to waist is going to be different. So remember the amount we had when we were drafting getting the bust dart. You're going to go up at the waistline, and it's going to be higher than what we had at the waistline for the front. And for the hip points, just take note of the waist to hip difference at the front, and then you mark it from that new line we have behind. So by the time we close up the front dart and we align the patterns, you're going to understand everything that's been done here. So in order to draft the back, I'm just going to create space so that I can do the continuous drafting method. And since the back of this outfit is going to have a zip, I just created a 1-inch zip allowance at the back, and I'm just going to draft the same thing we have at the front, and I'm just going to transfer it at the back. So this is me trying to close up the bust dart so that I can show you how it is expected to align with the back waistline. For you to be really accurate, I think it's even better to close up your bust dart first before you draw the back waistline so that everything aligns properly. I'm also marking out the measurements we have on the bust point and the waist point, and I'm just going to transfer it to the back. This is the reason why you have to take note of the space you need before you do continuous drafting. In that video where I drafted patterns, you're going to understand how to do this better if you watch those videos. So in order to close up the side darts, that's the bust dart, I had to open up the waist dart. Just like you always hear that when one dart closes, another dart has to open. So after doing that, I now aligned it at the bodice of the back, and I had to line it as in put it side by side to really confirm that everything is aligning. And just at that point, I realized that my line was a bit lower, so I matched it up, and then I made the adjustments. So that's why I said possibly you should close up your darts first before you even go to draw the back waistline so that everything is correct when you are stitching. So I went to the hip point as well for the front, and I took note of the measurements, and then I mirrored the same thing at the back so that we'll have exactly the same. Moving on, I went to draft the shoulder, the neckline for the back. The hip has to be the same as the front, and just make sure you are taking the measurement of the front shoulder and make sure it's the same thing, because when you're joining out the shoulders when you're stitching, you don't want one to be shorter than the other. So after that, if you want to use a princess seam at the back, you can also do that. Just take note of the point where you want the princess seam, just like the front, and you do that. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'm not using a princess seam at the back. I'm just going to be making use of the regular waist dart. Okay, now moving on to the build up collar we have on this dress. I just attached a new paper because it's going to be higher than the normal neckline, and at the neckline width, I'm just going to extend the line by about 2.5 inches. For an adult, you can use 2 inches to 3 inches. That is normal built up standard. But if you do anything more than that, you just want to make sure you are sure of what you're trying to achieve. If not, it will be too high and might be getting towards the chin area. So you want to be careful what you are doing. Okay, so after doing that, you're just going to blend it into the shoulder line like that, and then we're going to draft the V neckline we have at the front. And now the simple thing I'm doing here is just to take my bust circumference, which you can get by using your nipple to nipple and marking it round around the bust point, so you have an idea of how the bust is, and so that you don't do something that will be too exposed or underexposed depending on how you want it to be. So just mark the point where you want the neckline to get to, and then we're going to connect it down to that point. One thing you need to take note of is the fact that if you want the upper part, which is open, to be like 3 inches open, you mark maybe 1 inch or 1.25 inches because it's a fold, and then you're going to connect, and as it gets lower you notice that it becomes smaller. So that last point where we have that is towards the bust area, you see that it's not even up to 1 inch. So it has to be much more narrow as it comes down. You don't want to make a mistake and make the neckline too big, and at the end of the day you will not want, like, you do something that you did not plan for. So you need to put all these things into consideration when you're drafting. So after drafting the neckline for the front, all you need to do is repeat the same process at the back. Extend the back neckline by the same inches, the amount of inches you went up by at the front, and then you're going to connect. The difference here is that the back is not going to go down. We're not having any V at the back. We're going to just curve it down a little so that we don't have a sharp point behind. You just come down by like 1 inch at the, and don't forget it's going to reach the zipper point. It's going to reach the zip point, so you just come down by like 1 inch and then blend it down. But don't forget to contour the back waist point so that you don't have bulgy zip. When you put your zip, it's not going to be bulging. And someone asked me one time that why did I go up by a certain amount in my previous pattern. Please take note, now that I'm using a bust dart pattern, I'm not going up by anything at the back. I'm using the exact waistline because the front waistline and the back waistline are not the same. It's when I'm using the other pattern that does not have a bust dart that I have to go up so that it will now blend with what I'm trying to achieve with the bust dart pattern. I really hope you understand. Don't get confused. So just contour your zip points, and that should be it for the zipper area. So another thing you need to do is just make sure you're checking the shoulder points and ensuring that from the top of the built up collar, the front and the back will align so that when you're joining you don't have any shortage. I'll go ahead now to cut out these pieces and I'll possibly join them together to show you how it's supposed to look and how it's going to align with the back. So the whole reason for the alignment of the front and the back sides is so that when you're joining, you don't have one part having a different shape from the other or one part being longer. So put your tape and confirm all of this. Another thing is that when you're cutting at the neckline area, you want to add a little allowance around the built up collar and the neckline area so that when you're stitching you're not going to be cutting into the actual measurements. I also have a tutorial on this channel where I made a blazer with this kind of neckline where I explain in details how this is achieved. So if you don't mind, you can watch it after this and you still get to learn some more. Also, don't forget that the pieces would have half of an inch around, especially the parts where you are cutting out and you're planning to join back when you're making your princess line. Okay, so one very important thing you need to take note of is that the center piece is going to be cut on fold, and it's very important to use the same fabric as the lining for the center piece at the front and the back. So even if you want to use another color of lining on the side pieces, please make sure you're using the same fabric on the center. This is because of the kind of neckline that is being made. You don't want your built up collar to be standing and then when someone can look at your neck, it's as if they are seeing another color. You want to make sure that it's the same fabric so that it's the same fabric that is showing on the outside. I really hope this makes sense. This is how beautiful the pattern looked when I joined them. Imagine how pattern is looking so fine like this. Even when look at the curves on the under bust points, and everything looks so perfect. So imagine when this is on a human being. If you learned something new from this video, please, you know what to do. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on your notification bell. It's very important so that you're the first to know when there's a new video on this channel. Bye and take care.